ask scientists how they should make their, or they ask them for advice. It's not that the scientists tell them what to do, but they ask scientists how they should formulate their policies, and they rely on their mathematical models. And this has severe impact on like stockpiling or treatment priorities, like saying who gets treated first. So it could very well be that in the next pandemic, if you go to your doctor and say, by the way, I would like to get some Tamiflu, he says, well, I'm sorry, you're not on the priority list. So it's not just ivory tower science, it's really used also in politics. The models come in different flavors. There are the compartmental models, which are the classic SIR models, which I will talk later about. And then there are other models, individual or agent-based systems. The nomenclature is sometimes very different between the United States, also United States scientists and also British scientists. There are different groups, and they are sometimes calling the agent-based systems stochastic systems. What they actually are is they try to model the population based on the individual, and you need really a lot of computer powers for doing this. And you make a lot of assumptions, and whenever in modeling you make a lot of assumptions, you need to estimate your parameters from your real-world data. And they are very important and very interesting models, and they give a lot of insight. However, you always have to be aware that if you describe, I have to quote this, if you describe a complex poorly understood reality with a complex poorly understood model, then this is not progress. So I will focus on the SIR model. The S stands for susceptible, I stands for infectious, and R stands for recovered. Sometimes it's also called resistant because you are resistant to the infection. And all models make assumptions, and these assumptions are always wrong. You know these assumptions are wrong. But it depends on the strength of the violation, whether or not it's important. And the most critical assumption of an SIR model is that you have homogeneous mixing in these compartments, and that, for example, they have everyone who's in this compartment has the same contact probability to contact a person from here. And what it really is I have prepared these cups. It's really quite simple. So you have the drink of your choice. You put it in one. You put it in one glass, and let's say one infected person is in there, because otherwise you don't have an epidemic starting. And all you do is you have one compartment, and it's flowing from one compartment to the next compartment, and then it's flowing from this compartment to that compartment. And the difficult thing is to estimate the rates, like the arrows here. Where's my mouse? These arrows. And I only have 2 slides with formula. This is one, and I just walk you through it. I'm interested in this transmission here. And I start by asking myself, what's the general contact rate of people meeting each other? And I just call this C. And I'm not interested in who is meeting who. I'm just saying just the general contact rate of within a population is, I don't know, 1 person per second or 1 person every 20 seconds and so on. And if you go to the basement here in the Hex Center, you probably have something like, when you walk through the aisle, you get something like 30 persons a second. And the next step is that you ask yourself how many of those contacts are contacts with infected people. And here you divide the total number, which is I, the total number of infectious, you divide it by the total number in your population. And N is simply S plus I plus R. It's a closed system. And then you know how many of those contacts are made with infected people. And then it depends on your disease. There are certain diseases which, if you are susceptible, infect you almost 100%. Measles, for example. If one person in the middle, or let's say we are all, nobody of us had measles, and one person in the middle had measles, and we just go achoo, then very certainly everybody sitting around that person is infected because measles is so contagious. However, with tuberculosis, you need more contacts in order to get infected. So the transmission probability, where's this thing? The transmission probability is P, and this gives us now the number of, or the rate of one susceptible getting infected. And if we multiply it with the S here, we get the total transmission rate of our population. So it's rather quite simple. And if you look at it, P and C and N, they are constants. How do I get this bloody thing? And the term S multiplied by I is nonlinear, and this makes the whole thing, the whole modeling exercise very, very difficult. And this is also why you can't use normal statistics, because they usually assume a linear relationship. And this is why you basically enter a lot of differential equations and then let the computer solve these equations. And what I used in order to solve these equations is a program called Berkeley Madonna. I don't know why they came up with this name. And it's originally used for modeling chemical reactions, but it turned out that it's just a really great program. You can download a demo version. It's a great program for modeling infectious diseases. And all the code I need is here, this part, basically. And you get really nice graphs and everything, and nice sliders where you can play around with your parameters. You can download a demo version, and the code window here, you can copy-paste your text. You cannot save your model, but you just copy it to your Word or some ASCII text editor, and you save it there. And this slide gives you some of the disease parameters. Measles, I mentioned, already mentioned. And here you have an incubation period of about 10 days. You are infectious for 8 days. Transmission probability is like 95%. However, you are immune. Once you are infected, once you survive the infection, or if you get vaccinated, you are immune. And it's give me 1 second, please. Okay. It's airborne transmission. Syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease, so yeah, mode of transmission is sexually. Condoms protect, by the way. No, I mean, I come from a public health institute, so I have to make a public health message. Immunity is weak, which is why people get reinfected again and again. And however, the transmission probability is not that high, so please don't nail me on these numbers. I mean, nobody can tell you whether it's really 30% or 40%. It takes about 1 to 3 weeks. Another really interesting infectious disease is norovirus. One of the effects is called, in medical literature, it's called projectile vomiting. I don't know if, I mean, it's one of the diseases you read which happen on a cruise ship. So if everybody on a cruise ship is like throwing up or getting diarrhea, it's most certainly norovirus. It has a very short incubation period. Transmission is very high. And immunity is only possible against certain subtypes. So once you get infected with one type, you are immune against that subtype, and so on. Then we have corrupted blood. And by design, it's infectious for 10 seconds, unless you die earlier. And transmission probability, and this is a bit insane, is 100%, so you always get infected. And immunity, no, you can't get immune from it. There is a caveat, but I come to this later. And transmission is, yes, magic. It's small droplet-like, because it's like everybody around you, so it's definitely not sexually. So yes. And this is what you then do is you just draw your boxes and your arrows before you write down any maths. Here's something peculiar to World of Warcraft. Since you don't die, or there is no permanent death. You do die if you, I don't know, the dragon eats your head or cuts your head off or something like that. But then you end up on the graveyard, and on the graveyard, you are immune to corrupted blood. So for the sake of modeling corrupted blood, the graveyard, it should be the G compartment, but here it's the R compartment for keeping with the nomenclature. You cannot be infected by corrupted blood while you're on the graveyard. However, once you resurrect, either because your friends resurrect you with a magic spell or you just choose resurrection on the graveyard, you lose your immunity. So you have a constant replenishment of susceptibles in your world, in the World of Warcraft. And this model is called a ZIRS model. And it exists in the real world. It exists when you are immune to something, but when you lose your immunity. I mean, usually we lose immunity to all diseases, but we die before this takes effect because, because we die. So, what? Yes. A friend of mine said that the video I was showing is actually the spell volatile infection and not corrupted blood. But for the sake of the points I'm illustrating, it's the same. So now I'm showing you what happened with low-level avatars. This is not it. The video is looping. It should be. So the guy running around in the middle is spreading the disease. and they only die this, after the second blast, so they are quite strong. But they are low-level characters. I mean, I could watch this for minutes, for hours actually. I mean. And this is what a lot of people did. They just waited to get infected, and then they just ran around infecting everybody else. And you have to keep in mind that in order to play in the server, you pay money. So if you pay money for being dead all the time, it's not a good business model. So I stop here. So. Now this is done with the Berkeley Madonna program, and you enter different parameters. I have 3 different scenarios, A, B, C, and I start with 3,000 players, which would be like the number of players that are on a World of Warcraft server. It's only 1 infected person, and I just assume that I have a contact rate of 2 contacts per second, which would be, I think, fine. It's a good estimation for the city of Orgrimmar. And what you see in the graph here, time is on the x-axis, and number of people is on the y-axis. And we have the black one, it's the susceptibles. The red one, the red never touches 0. The red one are the infected. And the recovered on the graveyard, the recovered are green. And you see the system is fluctuating a bit, but in the end, when you look at it, about 85% of subscription fee paying players are spending their time on the graveyard. And in scenario B, everything is the same. The only difference is the contact rate. I have 1 contact every 2 seconds. And you can't see this, but the scale is different. What happens is that it's oscillating. It takes more time to reach an equilibrium, but in the end you end up with 50% of all subscription fee paying players in the graveyard. Now, scenario C is quite different. I start with 500 infected people, and I have 1 contact every 5 seconds. And here the infection dies out after about 6 minutes. So the contact rate does have an influence on the endpoint of your disease, and I will come to this later. Now there is a next different model. We have a high-level avatar. High-level avatars, so they are those who can survive like 1,000 damage or 2,000 damage, and they have toys and stuff that makes them reload their health. And what happens is that they get infected, and they recover. However, they recover without gaining immunity. And this is a model typically used for sexually